Ed, you got a presentation. Before we begin, you're going to go through the slides on those measures we adopted via hand or a vocal vote last week without adopting a formal measure. Everything you've shown has already been done. And all we're doing tonight is making a motion to approve the text amendment to the ordinance, correct?
Yes, sir. We'll walk through. There's still a couple of little nuances that we'll go through, but yes, sir. It's pretty much.
Okay. All right. Hit it, man.
All right. I can go ahead and start walking through, but we're having some couple of technical difficulties where we can wait so everybody can see the slides either way. It'll probably just be a few minutes here.
Yeah, when you get the slides up, Ed, and just to the public that's out there, thanks for coming, and those who may be watching at home. If you were here last week, you witnessed a pretty dynamic discussion on changes to the park. Not too many of them, unless council can remind me. Really, the biggest thing, the underlying factor to any of the changes made really was a responsibility to protect the natural environment while balancing that with the public's right to use that public trust property. So we're going to go through real quick, past sales and fees. Points of sale, there'll be a handful of those, pretty much the same as last year. Camping, a couple of changes there during the high season. It'll get to that. Hours of operation not to change, 24/7, 365. Until trends dictate something different with police chief inputs. Alcohol, no change there. I'm giving you all the cliff notes while we struggle through. Look at that. All right. Thank you, Ed.
Okay, Mayor Council, just walk through our recommendations and what we talked about at our November 13th meeting. The off-season pass sales for a day pass would be $20. In-season during the week would be $30. In-season on Saturday, Sunday would be $40. And the early bird special, December 9th through January 31st, we had $100. We did the lower cost, or we had originally had a higher cost, $120, and it extended the timeline from ending in December to cover the month of January. So we put in here as an option, and Mayor, I know you mentioned we'd already talked about it, but staff said, hey, do you want to do a graduated increase just as an option? December 100, January is 120.
Yeah, if anybody can correct me up here on council, I think we said stick with 100, 200. Joe Dan remembers it that way. Steve? And we did, we gave you a hand vote on that to hold what we got.
Gotcha. So we would also on-site purchase only for the early bird. The annual pass would be $200. Points of sale, town hall, Lanier office, and online options for the regular passes. We'd also looked at point of sale, and Sheila, I don't know if we had the other. Oh, I've got the wrong. Let me go back to. Is it? Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't know we had two PowerPoints here. So point of sale for Island Tackle, we talked about this and some of the options we have for Island Tackle sales. They are open quite a bit longer than Town Hall and the parking office, so that accommodates a lot of folks. One would be to continue as we are now. We would have to replace the computers at Allen Tackle, which would be about $2,700. We also had the $5 additional cost of Allen Tackle permits, and which we do see some loss of revenue from that as well. Another option would be, and we talked about adding the $5 cost to their processing fee. The questions I have for council is, do we want to either continue to provide the computers for the additional site, or do we want to put that on the onus of the vendor? So we can do either. We can provide it for them. There'll be additional costs that we would have to allocate some funds, or we could ask Allen Tackle to do that.
Did you get a breakdown of what percentage was sold at what locations?
The Allen Tackle sold the majority of the early bird. I think there were around 4,500 passes were sold there, and then the regular passes in the season were around 1,000 for Allen Tackle. And that was by far the largest sales. I don't have our numbers at the tip of my fingers.
And I
right
do
now.
think the convenience of their hours and their ability for people to get in and out in their location is good for us to sell those passes.
Absolutely.
Did you talk to them about the addition, if they could add a $5 charge for their processing?
We can do that. I really wanted to find out what option.
Right, but
But-
did you talk to the hardware store?
I have not yet, no ma'am.
Okay, I'm just wondering if they would be like, yeah, no, we don't want to do that, or yes, we think we could get that, or, because there is a cost for us to have them do it.
Oh, absolutely, right.
But the philosophy would be if somebody comes in there to buy a pass, they might buy 4 or 5 other things while they're in the store.
Sure.
So it's an advantage for that location.
What does the computer do?
They basically are entering in all the information for the permit. So that's how you reconcile. You have all the their license plate number, all their invoice information. So the option, I mean, even if we talked about even doing the cash only there, but then we would have to take the paper receipts and somebody would have to manually enter those. So there's always going to be
Nobody
a cost.
uses cash anymore.
Right.
I hate to say that, but even in my
So,
business, it's
Ed,
90%.
what,
Yeah,
they did it last year, why do we need to get them a new computer?
right.
Do we have
The computers we've used over the years are no longer operable, so we'd have to replace those.
What do you mean, all of them went bad at the same time, or you mean they're doing a different process?
They all went bad at the same time, basically. They're very old, so they won't make. One of them's completely fried, and the other two barely made it through the season.
We're just talking about basic laptop.
It's bare bones computer, bare bones we could get.
Okay.
Well, as we talked last week, Ed, for me, the biggest issue is having 4,700 people coming through town hall.
Right.
So now I'm surprised to hear this week, we're talking about an additional $2,700. I thought last week we said, work with Island Tackle and have them figure out how to charge the $5 service fee. Just like any other online service provider, when you pay your power bill, they charge you $8.30. So let Island Tackle figure that out. It's an important revenue. I mean, they get a lot of buyer, third-party purchase, point-of-sale stuff going on in there. I mean, the computer, I guess, is the computer. Would the town hall need to buy new computers too, or?
We've in the past we've provided those
No, I mean for town hall.
for town hall. No,
So we have computers that work. It's just their computers don't work.
right.
So, explain, a town, are you paying their processing fees now on the credit card payments? Or are you just giving them $5 per pass?
They would right now. There's $5 comes off the $100 or the $200 whenever time of year to go to Allen Tackle. There's also a $2.15 processing fee, and there's a $6 transaction fee for a credit card. So all that comes off the.
So, what's the total cost?
13, 15? Is that?
So you're
Right.
paying you're paying $5 plus $13, or $13, $6 additional?
There's the consumer pays the $2.15. the town would pay the $6 credit card transaction fee. And historically, we've also paid the $5 we lose from.
Okay.
You're already charging a transaction fee for using a credit card, and we're just paying them a $5 commission to sell these at their.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Right.
Right.
$5 is all we pay. We're not paying anything else.
No, we're paying the
paying
$6.30. We net, if it's $100, we net $87 or 86 and some change.
So I
Again,
would say, let them sell the pass, this is what I think, sell the pass for whatever the pass costs and add on their fee to do it. I mean, that's not unusual at all, you know, for that to be added on. And I
Right.
think it's convenient to go there. That's where I think anybody would go. But, so let them charge $5 or $6 or whatever.
So we'll move forward with the additional $5
And they
as we
paid
said
all the
last
process.
time.
Yeah.
And we'll go ahead and move forward with the computers too, is what I'm hearing.
I would buy on the computer.
This is the first time in 3 years, Ed, that you've told us that we're actually paying a service fee, even at town hall. Are you telling me if a person comes in at town hall and uses a debit card, we're paying $6?
Yes.
And we're paying another $2 on some other processing?
The processing fee is paid by, that's added on by, to the
So
sale.
when we say we sell
So the
4,000
consumer.
passes and we think we're making 400 grand, we're really not. We're getting 85 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
So again, I would have told you to go to the $1.20 on the early birds and stick it at 200. If we're paying, I mean, at some point it is, we're splitting nickels, but
What's the real
Add up.
cost? Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a.
I mean, everybody pays credit card processing fees.
Right.
right. So when I pay my Duke Power, and I keep coming back to that because I just did it the other day and it aggravated the daylights out of me. I could go buy a 44-cent forever stamp and send them a check, or I could pay them $8.21. It wasn't my bill less $8.21. They didn't absorb that
Right.
fee.
Yeah,
It was
that's-
my bill plus the $8.21. So in this case, we keep discounting it off the number, and then we wonder why at the end of the year our budget numbers are different. I'm just,
I mean, because we probably don't account for that. I've never seen that fee out anywhere. I mean, there is a fee to that, and so I don't know where it is. And how much it is. And
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot of other fees when somebody comes in, we can go into that later, but somebody comes in and buys a building permit or thousands of dollars, you know.
we just recently changed that in the building department where you now, if your building permit is $100, you pay $100 plus the fee.
Okay,
I
and
believe
you should.
Didn't we change that, Sheila, in the building department?
We did, if you
Yeah.
use a credit card,
Right.
you should pay, permit fee, yes, there's a credit card fee.
We should add that on to the parking pass.
I mean, that's certainly understandable. I just bought furniture online and they did the same thing. They added a credit card fee, but everybody's getting cash back on their credit card, so there's no reason not to add it back.
So what I'm hearing is add the transaction processing fee, pass that on to consumer.
Yep.
To the 100, council? Or Steve, 120?
I mean,
if
you're gonna add it, that's fine.
If we're just, yeah, because if we went to 100 and 200 last week, and we went that way, the
Right.
user
At the-
fee,
it-
though, is,
right.
that's
It-
kind of a,
At the end of the day, my anticipation was the town of Carolina Beach received a net $100 for an early bird.
Right.
You go figure out how to
Right.
pay for it after that.
Right.
Yes, sir.
all right,
Make math
Okay.
okay.
All right, I'm going.
Anything else on this, guys?
But you're going to have to make sure Dennis is okay to do that. And I would say he would be, but,
Yeah, he still wants
you know.
Okay.
point of sale.
I think I'm good.
All right.
And camping,
Oh,
go ahead.
Oh, wait, I'll hold off. We're not opening public hearing yet. Go through the slides like we had talked about, Ed.
Right, yes, sir. So camping is $50 a night. We talked about doing that from Labor Day to Memorial Day, which is what we put in here. What we're looking at doing is implementing this starting January 1. We would go ahead and start the charging process and making sure we have the campsites ready to go for the rest of the off season. See areas. I just wanted to point this out. The areas where you can't camp would be 10 feet from the dune, and we'd have to keep a minimum drive aisle open, so between the campsites and the wet sand area. Campfires, we did open that up per council's direction, where they can be anywhere on the beach as long as they're in the contained per our existing code.
And 10 feet from the dunes.
Absolutely. Hours of operation, based on council's recommendation, we did move forward with a 24/7, 365 days as we would be staying open. We did not change anything with alcohol in the ordinance in front of you. We did not recommend, or staff went back and looked at, we do not recommend, as the one gentleman brought up, can we open the park up past the pinch point, so at a patron's risk. We don't recommend doing that. We feel like there's going to be a lot of potential for safety issues to occur as well as environmental issues. And that's it.
Council? This is the time now when we motion to approve the amended ordinance that I have in front of me based on the direction we gave Ed last Wednesday night. Anything to add to it?
Nope, I'm cool with it.
Adopting the user fee on the front side or the back side of that, 100 and 200 on the passes. Okay.
And Ed, I do see Wes Barber is here, so maybe he can chat with you after.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry I didn't see you in the back.
I do think it's worth noting that this is the second year in a row that staff has recommended strongly that we look at revising the hours and closing the park at some time. And twice council has overlooked staff's objection and legal objection or recommendations. And I think that's important for us to note, that there are some reasons. I mean, there's some safety reasons and there's a lot of reasons that they're recommending that the park be closed, and ask people to leave if they're not camping. We had the discussion about the fishermen's, but I think it's important that we're on the record to note that staff for 2 years in a row and our legal counsel has advised us to look at hours.
Thank you.
And that's something we can certainly revisit at any time.
Yeah, Chief, you and I had got together last week for lunch, getting back some data that shows trends that might suggest that's the way to go, or get back to council to make that recommended change when that time comes. So with that, I make a motion to approve the changes to the Freeman Park ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
3
And
to
I'm
1.
only doing that on the objection of the hours. I just think we're open to issues on that. The rest of it I'm fine with, but the hours I think is something we need to listen to our attorney from time to time.
What is our first day of sales?
December 9th.
And you
is-
have time to get that? Okay. Okay.
Steve?
Whatever you think.
A lot of folks that came here.
You're the boss.
All right. Yeah, I guess I am the presiding officer, at least for 3 weeks. I'm
Whatever you
looking
say,
over to
boss.
my right. Yeah, it's not on the agenda, but I am going to make a motion to open for public comment, probably germane to the discussion today, before we go to, you got a presentation, right? From Lanier? I don't see it on the agenda. Anything from them?
We do have a presentation from Lanier.
Okay, all I see is, okay, yeah. Why don't we do that, and then I'll come back to public comment. So with that, Lanier, please come up and show us what you got.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff. We appreciate working with you guys this past year. We've had a great year. Just want to introduce some members of our teams. We've got Tina Reed, who's our regional vice president. She operates both of our Carolinas operations for North and South Carolina. Bryant Sykes, who's a Wilmington guy. He oversees and helps all of our operations for Wilmington, Carolina Beach, and Wrightsville Beach. Steven Zurcher is our location manager, so you've probably seen him around. And then Shauna Vineyard is our assistant manager, so we're happy to have, we have a great team. It's been a great year. So I'm going to run through this presentation, and who's driving?
I can if you.
Okay, sounds good. Ready to roll. So, So from a revenue perspective, we had a very good year. If you take a look at the purple and burgundy colors, you can see the 2018 figures at $1.2 million for on-street gross revenue compared to this year of 2019 is $1.4 million. One of the things I will point out, these are same period sales, so that is January through October for 2018 and 2019. So as you can see there, there's still a couple of months to go. We do still have some revenue that trickles in for revenue collection through citations, but the bulk of the season is closed out. And then you can see on the right-hand side the makeup of that revenue for on-street, where it came from. So you can see that the pay station versus meter versus violations. The on-street revenue, this shows on the bottom left-hand side the percentage of revenue from the meters that come from coin, credit, or Park Mobile, which obviously is the ability to pay for parking via your cell phone. In the bottom right is your pay station revenue breakdown. You can see the cash versus credit and Park Mobile. So you can see that cash in a pay station environment is declining drastically, and more people want to pay by credit card. And we'll get into later in the presentation that you'll see that the Park Mobile is a relatively new product. It was just introduced for the first full season this year, and we saw 7% of that revenue happening through Park Mobile. What you will find is in a more mature operation as this goes forward in the next several years, you'll notice that Park Mobile revenue, or the ability to pay via your cell phone, is going to go up pretty significantly in a more mature program.
Scott, on our July revenue there for 18-19, was that a weather related? Is that what you guys are relating
Yes.
that difference?
Remember, we had a hurricane
Right.
in September, so absolutely. And you also notice, if you look all the way to
No, I'm
October.
talking about July 18 had more revenue than July 19.
Yes,
That was-
yeah. We've asked ourselves the same question, what's the dynamic there? And we think it was because it was so hot during those months. As you remember, we had all those days that were in excess of 100 degrees, right at 100 degrees. It was super hot. What's that?
No one wanted to go to the beach when it was on.
Your guess is as good as mine on that one. I'm not sure. Maybe they got all their sun and fun in the early part of the season because it got warmer earlier in the season, so who knows?
That last slide you showed said 75,000 violations. Is that citations that were written through violations for the town?
Dollar-wise?
The
Yes.
75,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
How's our
Yeah, that's what's been collected thus far.
collected?
Collected thus far. Got another slide that we'll talk about that, but
Those are
basically.
revenues in the door then, right there.
In the door, yep. So what's gonna happen is, I can't remember exactly where it is, but you'll typically find our collection percentage right now is 60%, 65 to 66% right now, something like that, which is the same in most of our systems. So what happens is when you write citations and you do the noticing off of that, it takes a little time for those revenues to begin coming in and to become fully mature. So what will happen is, you give her another 90 days, 120 rolling into the beginning of next year, you'll see that 66% number get into the 70s. So typically you find it into the 73 to 78% range when it's all mature, collected, and booked.
And Scott, just for the public, you explained that to me a couple months ago when I called you,
Right.
that you have to notice 4 times, 3 times?
3, right? We're doing 3 here? Twice.
Twice.
Two notices.
Which
that you
takes a
don't have.
couple months for you to get through that process. And then your recourse is to attach their tax returns if they're a North Carolina resident?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
At the end of the year, or the end of the period, whatever that pay period is, or the contract period, you typically collect back, what's a good percent you could take a guess at?
When it's all said and done, of
All
all
said and done,
citations collected,
right.
75%. Somewhere 72 to 75 is a good job.
So just because we may have, let's say $50,000 in uncollected fines, does not mean we're not collecting them. It just means they haven't came in, like Steve says, in the door yet.
That's correct.
Okay.
Just takes a little time, as we talked about.
Just on the books.
That's right. So you write the citation, you give it some time, you send out the first notice, it takes some time, and you collect some off of that. You send the second notice, it takes some time, and people pay off of those citation notices. And then, as you stated, if it's a North Carolina resident, you have the opportunity to attach to their tax returns and to other opportunities.
Thank you.
That's right.
Thank
Okay.
you for the explanation. I think there was some
Everybody
confusion
good on that?
about how that works.
Yeah, okay. And then for your meter comparison, this shows the by month, but in the bottom, you can see that we exceeded our meter revenue by about $65,000. We had a 16.7% total increase in revenue that we generated through the parking meters. So in our presentation, we've broken down meter versus pay station versus Freeman Park, and we've broken everything out so you can see it specifically. Same thing with pay stations. You can see that we were up in our pay station collections by about 10%, about $85,000 in total. You can see the same question you were asking, Steve, about the months, what, why July? So that was the month that was higher for some reason. July 4th has a big function of that too, so it could be July 4th.
Slide that back one, Ed. It looks like, our entire July through September 18 was higher. I'm just anecdotally,
Yeah.
that's an interesting,
Right. Yeah, it is.
I don't know what that means. It just means everyone on the beach said they were busier this year than they were last year.
I think I can attest that we had a phenomenal spring, which is what your numbers also indicate.
Right.
The numbers were much higher, but,
It rained all summer, 100, whatever it was, but it just seems a little backwards. The 2018, 2019, Scott, not looking, but that's just me
Yeah.
throwing something on the
Well,
wall.
it makes me
Exactly.
wonder if we actually, if that variance is the other third-party parking lots that we saw competition this year. We have a substantial.
well, and that's a good thought.
Thank you.
You think, so that's the only variable. And so were they charging less money than we were charging, or just the same and their location was better? More money, okay.
Yeah, they were charging more, but I mean, our revenue loss is definitely because there were 6 or 7 different lots, and a lot of them were front row lots.
Right, exactly, yeah, okay, location,
Interesting.
okay.
So it goes to show that it's not a matter of what you're charging, it's where your location is. Those lots are more expensive, but
all
they're
about
right there. I mean, the
convenience.
ones right by the Sea Witch, they're paying top dollar.
That's right.
Right? So it's not, so everyone that says, oh, we're charging so much, people are paying to be closer. And that's where we lost that revenue. I mean, you're talking $20,000 in the month of July. Over 18, if you look at those 3 months, there's $75,000 in the difference between 18 and 19. And that's directly related to those off-site parking lots. Should be the business.
This is a slide that shows a chart of where the revenue came from by location. And the Weeks lot obviously was under construction, so there's not a lot there, but that gives you a good representation of the total number of spaces in each location and the revenue attributable to each. So, Palms and Town Hall clearly are the highest revenue generating locations that you have.
Which one do you, just so everyone's clear, which one are you calling the Town Hall lot? Is that the old Town Hall site over by Harbor?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay. Glad you asked that, because I was trying to
So
figure that out
The Palms
myself.
lot is the other half of that lot.
Right,
So
Right.
the Palms, most people would refer to both of those lots as the Palms lot. That's everything from Winter to Harper,
Right.
right?
so both those lots together.
You're gonna have Palms around Harper, in the middle between Town Hall, and on the far side's gonna be Marina. So right against Carlin is gonna be Marina lot.
The one right up on Carl Winter is Marina,
Yes,
so the Palms is the center section one?
the Palms is gonna be right next to Harper. And
Okay,
closest
from
to-
Bank of America back, okay. All right. And then what about, what are we calling the one at the Fisherman lot, number is 70, okay.
Which
So
one,
that's
what,
70, I'm just, the Fisherman lot, that's the one by Scotchman behind Sea Witch.
and what, so we can figure it out, it's a little confusing.
Interesting.
At the Max lot, any of those lots are going to be inaccessible at some point in time in 2020?
This is good stuff
No,
though,
this is
guys.
good. I like that.
You got
That's
54
106
spaces
spots that I
that are
think
catching
we
100
expect to
look at the revenue.
lose.
Very good chance you're going to lose that.
So, okay, yeah,
That's the one up
that's a
front by
significant
Carl
delta in spots,
Winter. So when you go.
which gives the next council something to work towards in terms of trying to collect those back or harvest those somewhere
You
else.
only got
Yes, sir.
66 spaces, look how much. So, Scott, is that, on the Palms and the Town Hall lots, we're generating that much revenue off of those number of spaces? I mean, those are substantial, like Max lot's 106, but we don't get near the revenue. Are we just getting a lot more turnover there? I mean, I would've thought those are day-long parkers, people that are parking.
It's gonna center of town, the big contractor there, but Max is also renting employees park, so some of those spaces are gonna take up.
Or local residents that don't
Okay,
pay your
so which
machines.
one's the Max lot?
Max is gonna be right behind Michelangelo's.
Okay. Which is the one we're potentially gonna lose this year, Ed?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because interesting, I don't park in those lots either, so, and I would think that
Most
maybe is
residents
where
don't.
day trippers are parking.
Most residents don't.
Okay. No, this is great. Keep
Okay.
going.
It would be good to dive into those a little.
This is another way to look at it too. So this is your transaction breakdown based upon pay stations, meters, and Park Mobile, and the total number of transactions that are happening. So here you see that, that you've got 155,000 transactions that happen or have happened through the year with meters, but it only represents about a third of your revenue. 2/3 of the revenue come from other sources, but there's more transactions, which makes sense because parking meters are typically designed for turnover, and people pay less time, and you're putting money in the meter instead
So
of.
what's our maintenance factor on the meters? Is that higher maintenance than the, pay stations? I mean, if we're only getting a third of the revenue and you got,
Yes, and primarily because there is more of them out there on the streets. We're gonna have, we have 340 more spaces for the meters themselves compared to the 16 lots. And primarily the pay stations themselves, they kind of more plug and play to where the maintenance, they can go out there and kind of diagnose pretty quickly. Whereas these meters, having to shut them off, we did have to send off, a couple, it was those are roughly about 50 Dunkin' meters that we had to send off towards the beginning of the season and such, and it does take a little time to get those back, so it did kind of affect
so in the
that.
past, we talked about doing, kind of a quasi pay station or a box on the block where you could, that way you didn't have 36 meters all the way down the street. You just had a box, you went, you punched your ticket or you punched in. Is that gonna be less maintenance? One of the comments that staff has reminded us that these contracts rely on maintenance. And if we have to maintain a mechanical meter or an electronic meter, salt water, it's just a lot more. If you can do one that handles 30 spaces versus 30, the odds would seem, I mean, have we looked at that long-term? Is that something in our capital plan?
In the presentation later on, we'll be talking about there's gonna be new spaces that are gonna be, like park mobile spaces, pay by phone, things like that. So we're slowly trying to introduce that, but we'll.
So we should have skipped to the end. We like.
Why don't you go ahead?
Go ahead, keep going. The other thing too is the break point is somewhere between, depending on revenue, between 12 and 15 spaces is the magic break point between using meters and using a pay station. So
Okay.
it's space matters too. I mean, they have to be relatively close, but that's usually the break point, is if you have 12 to 15 spaces, at that point, it makes sense if if the real estate supports it, to have a pay station instead of a bunch of meters, and it's more aesthetically pleasing and not a bunch of poles in the ground. Okay? Park Mobile comparison. So this is, again, I was touched on this earlier, but in 2018, we had $47,000 worth of revenue that happened through Park Mobile. And in 2019, we had $191,000 that happened. Now, that's not a fair comparison because it just came online at the latter part of 18, and this has been a full year in
Do
2019.
we pay a
with-
transaction fee for those Park Mobile transactions?
We do, but it's passed along to the consumer. Yeah, the consumer pays for all the transaction fees, so you're getting 100% of that revenue, except for the credit card fee.
That fee reduced when we came on board, we got it reduced, and then they requested it last year.
Yeah.
So if it says 191,487.50, the town received 191,487.50, it's not less of fees?
Except for you paid the credit card fees.
We pay the credit card.
That's right. The processing fee, which is a couple points, 2.5 points or something like that. That's correct. It's like your power bill.
Right. Got it.
Thanks for making that easy for him.
I
Well, it
assure
made
you-
sense to me too.
I assure you, on my power bill, they're also charging me the credit card fee.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
They roll that up.
Of course they are.
So let's figure out how to roll that up.
It's a convenience fee.
That's yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, okay. Violation revenue, this is a pretty impressive slide. So, in 2018, at the same time of the year, we had, we weren't operating at that time, but $35,000 worth of violation revenue had been collected. And this year we're at $75,000, which is a $40,000 improvement, which is 117% total improvement in violation, total revenue collection. So we're real proud of that slide. I'll leave it at that, but that one just basically says our staff behind us has done a phenomenal job of getting on the ground and boots on the ground, collection, doing what we're supposed to be doing for the collection of the citations.
And some of that, Scott, I mean, I don't want to belabor it, but we've had a conversation about golf cart parking. And one of the problems we had was you guys were out there enforcing, which is great, but we tried to ask you to back off of some of that golf cart until we can come up with some fixes. I think the mayor was looking to, quote, harvest some more spaces. We had people in town wanting, so we're a significant, I mean, at some point, can you break out for staff if a lot of those were golf carts? I mean, do we know that? That's just been a real issue with our residents as far as trying to have,
Because it's a license plate, right? So we don't know what kind of.
it's just, yeah, that's fine. Just at some point, it would,
You can figure that out. Okay.
we're just trying to get a handle on, we had a lot of feedback from the public about golf cart parking and trying to facilitate allowing those. And I'm sure that you guys tagged some golf carts that maybe weren't in, quote, legitimate parking places.
Right.
That felt very legitimate to our golf cart owners.
And we've made a lot of progress since we've talked about that too. So our staff and Ed have had a lot of meetings about that and ways to increase the availability for golf carts and to tandem and lots of different ideas. So yeah, we're definitely trying to increase the opportunity for golf cart folks to park and to double up and make it more easy or easier.
Really looking at your annual sales of a golf cart pass versus a traditional car, the trends ought to show more golf carts against the,
Yeah.
and maybe use that in some empirical fashion as to how to go about establishing golf cart only spots.
Yeah.
Just one, one data point to
Yeah.
consider.
All right, Freeman Park. So this is an interesting slide. You were talking about this before we started speaking, but this is the number, or show the numbers of passes for the early birds that were sold. And last year, the early bird was only in December, right? Not into January. So that will show you that 5,600 passes were sold in the month of December. And then the rest, 1,500 were sold in 2019. And then you've got 4,300 day passes that were sold. So that will show you that roughly 2/3 of your total users are using some sort of a season pass, whether it was purchased early or not, versus your day pass users. So if that factors into the other processing and decision-making points, that's pretty significant,
That's pretty significant.
very significant.
Understanding that overwhelming majority of people have some kind of annual pass, not daily pass.
That's right.
Very
You
Yeah,
also
and
notice-
even on those occasions when the suspension of daily passes was necessary, but that was on this past summer, that was about 4 occasions.
Yes, sir. I believe it was 4 days.
Okay, so that wouldn't have been that many more daily passes against the annual passes. It's still pretty, what we're seeing here is still pretty close approximation.
Right.
And council, the pass that you see there is the pass that we're gonna be using for 2020.
And for the public, it's a much nicer looking color on our screen. So it's very
Okay.
cute, very
Very
cute.
good.
It's aqua.
Yo,
It's
dude.
not that.
Yeah, you'll notice that there's a barcode on it, so we haven't finished studying other alternatives and better, or ways to be more efficient with Freeman Park. That is an ongoing, communication with our staff and yours about how to incorporate that. But if we're looking at opportunities to be able to use that barcode, and so if we can figure out something that works for all parties, then we already have the barcode, it's on the pass, it's been sold, so we at least
Explain
have
that,
the option.
explain that a little more.
In terms of what we could use it for?
Yeah, I mean, what would prevent you from using it? How do you capture it? Can we get a reader at Freeman Park? Is it only a handheld? I mean, what are some of the options? Because this is something that we've been asking for a couple of years, is to
Right.
really drill down on how many times a visitor that's using a pass goes out there, and when they go and where they're coming from, so that we know how to manage our police, fire, lifeguards, trash. I mean, it's related to so many things.
Yeah, Tina's got more good data on that than I do, so.
So, yeah, we put the barcode on there with the anticipation that as we get a little further along, we'll try to figure out how we can do it simply that count those that are coming through and how many times they've been. You've got the top of the cart that you could purchase, and you've got, the little simple little barcode reader. It's the integration of that reader to a system that will allow us to analyze that data is where we're at now, trying to figure that out. We've looked at the potential of, we talked before about the toll system kind of that you do through the road, and as you come through, it's reading your license plate. So we've gone through and we've looked through the possibility of putting that in at Freeman Park. That's essentially a car count system, counting vehicles based on their license plate. They're not cheap,
What's the average cost
But
for one?
$30,000.
Does it count the car, does it count the license plate, or would it hit a IR on that?
It does license plate recognition, so if it's an annual pass, so to speak, an annual pass person, we already have that data, because when they picked up their pass and paid for it, we already have that license plate system in our system. So it reads that license plate, it starts tagging them, when it went in, what time it went in, same as it comes out, it tags that, so it gives us that data. On a daily parker, that's where we still gotta work on that integration, because it's how you pay as a daily pass purchaser at the machine, what's how, if you're gonna do it with your license.
Yeah, but the license plate reader doesn't have anything to do with the barcode.
But
So
the
can,
but
go
I'm
ahead.
saying that the barcode is allowing us to scan that into the system, so then it also can tag with the license plate, and there's in conjunction to that. So there's still a work in progress to do that.
If
And
we want to move forward.
You say it's 30 grand, is that what she said, Joanne?
Yearly.
Is it,
It's 30 grand first year install, hardware, the whole shebang.
right,
And then each year after that, it's running about 12
for, software?
for software.
Curious to a rendering of what that
So-
looks like.
Simple, that 1%, I mean, it's not an outright, right? Look at your annual budget, 1%.
This is more of a fixed camera system, so you have cameras that are fixed at angles, scanning those license plates and such. I can get you a rendering and get you a little bit.
But I mean, just doing a, what about just a simple gun that reads?
Simple handheld, it's just making sure that it integrates with our back of house system and for everything. That's where I'm working with them right now. I can't just go to Staples and buy a barcode scanner.
Right.
And do it. It's gotta be able to work for the system, the back of house system that we need. So that's where we're working through that process right now.
Okay, thanks.
All right. For our expenses, we don't have information on prior year expenses, but we know what we had approved in our budget and submitted in our original proposals, and it was about $468,000. And we are happy to report that we've been able to operate and run it substantially under budget at $388,000. So congratulations to our team.
savings? That's almost 20%.
You guys never, he was asking what the annual savings, what that.
It was
where we're saving money.
$80,000, almost 20% of the budget, 18% of the budget. What was the savings? Was it in repairs? Was it in hours? Was it in?
Manpower.
It was across the board, we had savings in all categories,
Okay.
in payroll and in operational.
Okay.
There are some expenses that were within our budget that the town pays directly that we may have had in our budget and we don't pay those directly. But for the most part, I would say it's primarily operational supplies. We budgeted what we anticipated it would take to get this operation up and running appropriately, and we were able to keep that a little bit more in the budget than expected.
Thank you.
One other thing that you have to do in your budget, from a personnel perspective, you have to plan as if you're gonna staff every single day, but we are really good at managing bad weather days, so if all of a sudden you have a terrible weather day, you can send some folks home early if they're not needed, that sort of thing, so a lot of times you pick most of it up in payroll,
Thank you.
so, yep. Upcoming projects, I'm gonna turn it back over to Tina, so.
Y'all excuse me, my voice is on taking vacation. The equipment updates, we just wanted to quickly go through. We have already discussed and you've already approved going through phase one, where we're in the process of purchasing 10 new Parkeon pay stations. And those will be pay-by-plate method, so we will be replacing within parking lots. We should have those mid-February, late February, to have them up and installed through March and have them ready to go for the new season. So it will be, your process will be, instead of going to the pay station, paying for the amount of time, getting a receipt, going back to your car, you're simply gonna enter your license plate, get your receipt, and go about your day. So we will then be able to enforce more so with our license plate recognition vehicle and be able to do that process a little bit more efficiently. Also going to be replacing some of the older, Duncan meters and replacing those with some of the McKay meters, which are a little bit better workhorse, that we speak, that they are a little bit more livelier and uphold a little bit better. Phase two, at the end of the season next year, we'll be able to come back to you and make a better assessment. We gave you an idea of what we thought a 3-year plan could possibly be, but after the next year and with the new equipment, we'll come back to you and say, we still need to move forward with what we said we needed for phase two, or if we need to make adjustments. With the increase in Park Mobile and the pay-by-sale option that people are using, we may come back to you and say we need less equipment. Just depends on what the trends are going toward, okay? Upcoming projects here, we've listed a couple of things, and if we go to the next slide, we just talked about our parking office is moving. We'll be moving to 1708 Canal Drive, which we should be in there and ready to go by December the 9th. It will allow for customers to pick up Freeman Park annual passes. We will no longer be mailing out those passes that are purchased online. We will make those available, and they can pick them up on their way to Freeman Park and such, but they'll be available for pickup at our office.
At the time you do that, one of the requests or comments that had come from the public was to make sure that we're giving them the rules, or going over the rules. I mean, if they're actually having to come in and pick up a pass, is there any kind of, I know when they're doing the golf cart passes, they have to sign a little acknowledgement that says they've
Yes.
looked at these rules. I mean,
We've talked with staff, and we're gonna get back with them some recommendations of a particular form that they have to read, check off that they verified that they have
okay,
read the
good.
rules
You
and
go to the south,
regulations.
yep, you go to the south end and they make you sign something when you get your
Yeah.
pass that said you've looked at all their rules and that you're aware that they carry a gun and you can't do this stuff. Right, okay.
Exactly, but yeah, we will make that process. And it is also ADA accessible. As you'll see, the town's worked hard to increase the ramp so that we have that access. The next slide is, we've been in discussions with town staff as well, talking about the lots and the areas where we see the potential to add additional spaces, whether it be golf cart spacing, whether it be changing just some of the metrics so that we can try to get more spaces, get more handicap spaces, get more golf cart spaces. So this is a list that's been generated that we plan to work with the town and tackle in our off-season, so that we'll be able to do some restriping. We know that the Palms lot, for instance, really needs restriping. You can barely see those lines, so a project for us in the off-season will be to repaint those so that they're bright and everything's ready for the new season.
So do you plan to add golf cart parking to the Palms lot?
I believe we did indicate that we would add, yes, I don't know exactly how many spaces at this point, but we did recommend adding, we did a couple of surveys at different times throughout that area to see at different times how many golf carts were here at 9 a.m., how many were here at this particular time, so kind of have an idea of how many golf carts.
So,
were utilized.
and I would think that you would have less in that lot because the revenue shows that's more of a day tripper, and a golf cart would already have a parking pass for the most part, I think. So I would just be curious to see how many where are you focusing golf cart parking?
And we typically, on most of those lots, we looked for spacing where it would not be ideal for a vehicle, but where we could get golf carts in corner spaces, in little off areas, things of that nature, so that we're not taking away from the vehicular spaces as much as we can. Next slide is, again, in discussions with the town staff, these are areas that have been delineated as potential new spaces that will be park mobile only. So there'll be no capital investment needed for these spaces. We will put signage up that will have the particular zone in which they'll be able to then do all the park mobile spaces, but it will be a park mobile only space area.
Where is that? I'm sorry, I can't read the little.
It's gonna say-
By the, so what is that? Is that vehicle parking or back there?
All the spaces in red
Or vehicle,
will be vehicle,
not golf cart?
not
Okay.
golf cart.
How do you think that's gonna go over with the guys at the Legion?
Well, I don't know. Well, I mean, they're all gonna have
Most of them have probably.
parking passes. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know. I don't know who would park there other than the people going to the American Legion, so I don't know.
We have a lot of people that go down and park and go fishing or walking the trails.
So you mean to have some kind of collection there?
It would be by the app only. We're not suggesting putting in equipment. We're suggesting that you do it by the app only.
So all your American Legion guys are gonna have to get a smartphone and download, pay for parking.
Good Lord.
I'm just telling you, get
We
ready.
can go there tomorrow night, Joe, Dan, and show them how to download an app.
I do think they park over there now a lot. I
Yeah,
know
if
what you're
they're-
trying to capture is the people going down there parking and fishing or going to the park. Is that what you're trying to capture?
Absolutely. And
Good answer.
American Legion does have a parking lot, but there are times, we were there, and they
That's right.
take up that parking just
Across
a week or so
exactly
ago.
where those spots are.
But if you're, like Councilman Garza mentioned, if most of the folks that are going there do already have a sticker for the town. So if you have a sticker, you wouldn't have to
Right.
pay through Park Mobile. But Park Mobile is one app we're using, and I think we're talking about that, but we're looking at expanding that as well, so make it a little easier.
Yeah, because there's an American Legion over the bridge for folks in Wilmington and
Do they have park mobile?
they may.
Next slide,
After
this year, we did update some of the lots with updated signage, as we felt that the signage needed to be cohesive throughout the town. And so we intend to continue to do that, especially as we install new equipment and go to a new pay-by-plate method with those instructions. So we'll continue updating those signage, and you'll see those at all the locations where we put in new pay stations, as well as some additional new signage at Freeman Park as we continue through the season. Next is a slide about, we're talking about the future parking trends. So a couple of things that as your parking management provider, we want to make sure that we bring to you some new and innovative things that are coming through. One of these is called PATH, which is analytical business program that our company, Reeve, has partnered with IBM. And so basically right now what it takes is you have 3 or 4 equipment platforms. We have Duncan meters, we have McKay meters, we have T2 pay stations, we have T2 enforcement, so all these things. In order to pull all this data together for you for these type of reports, we have to pull all these reports manually, we have to do all the configuration, get all these details. So this is a program that intertwines with all of those platforms, pulls all that data into real time, disseminates a dashboard that you can create yourself. Each person can have their own dashboard. You have your own user login. And at a moment's notice, if you need to know revenue per space at a particular lot, you can literally drill down to that and you can have that information immediately. So that's an opportunity where we're able to give you better data so that you can make better decisions based on the parking program and the needs of the town. So it is a system that we'll be able to give you a little bit more information about in the next season of what the costs are associated to it and how it can benefit you more. So we'll be bringing you more information about that. The next is we are considering right now converting our enforcement platform. Right now we're using a T2 platform. So we're looking at potentially moving away from that and moving to a municipal citations platform. It's a little bit more robust. It gives us a little bit more, works a little bit better with our LPR vehicle that we have in that system. So we're going to come to the town, give you some options as far as the cost related to that, what we feel the benefits are, so that we can make the best decision for the new season. And then we've also started working with a second pay-by-sale provider. We are starting to see that in some of the new town, in some of the cities where it's not just to pinpoint everybody to one particular pay-by-sale provider, that you offer 2. The newest one is called Hunk Mobile. If you'll go to the next screen, it gives you, they now have what they call a virtual meter. So basically it's a sign that has the tap emblem or it has a QR code. You don't have to download an app. You don't have to have an account, so to speak. You simply, if you have Apple Pay, Google Wallet, you go up and you tap the tap sign. That particular tap sign is set to that particular area. You enter your license plate number, enter how long you want to pay, how long you would like to stay. It processes your payment. It sends us the data. You're paid and you're gone. So the whole concept of this is frictionless parking. How can we lessen the points from the person parking to getting to their destination? So this is a new feature that's coming out. We're starting to see a lot of different companies come out with a lot of different apps. Our company as a whole has started using this, and we have become very happy with it and really like it. So as we explore a little bit more in the opportunities, we'll be bringing some of those opportunities to you. And then the other part of that is a little bit more information about our PATH program.
Just to understand that, so how does your parking enforcement officer then understand that someone's paid? When they
Because
do a
they
tap
entered their
and
license
QR,
plate,
right?
and their system integrates with our enforcement system. So when they type in the license plate to see if they're a paid parker, it gives them the notification.
So
that
your
they're paid.
enforcement person goes around and has to enter each parking license plate?
They can either enter it, or the vehicle that we have scans the license plates and it puts it into the system.
Okay. Interesting.
And that's all I have.
another option.
Anybody else have anything else? Thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. And I remember a year ago that you had strongly promoted the Park Mobile option, and clearly it is demonstrated very nicely.
Yep.
So thanks for delivering on that.
And it really came through in the beginning of the season. We had equipment malfunctions.
Mm.
So we had equipment that we had to send back and we didn't have anything, so we really pushed that method. And once we found that once you start with an app like that, you become accustomed to it. So you use it here, use it in other cities, it just becomes part of your daily process.
Do you have a revenue projection versus a budgeted for the parking?
For this past year? You showed us, your first slide showed how much revenue we brought in, And it was up from last year, but what was our budgeted number, Ed? In other words, did we hit our budget or did we exceed our revenue budget?
I'd have to bring up the budget and Debbie, unless you know Debbie.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Well, that would be just fairly important.
Right, to know what
I mean,
we're
I know we
budgeting
made more
versus,
revenue than last year, but we raised the rate. The question is, did we hit our
Yeah,
budgeted
sure.
revenue?
That's a good question. We can get back to you on that, research that for you. Get
so
that.
maybe, Kim, if you could email us the slide presentation and with that information, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to
Also
look through this a little more.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you'll also notice you were talking about the Park Mobile and how that will change too as we continue moving forward into the next year. People have the app, they're used to using it, they find how convenient that it is and becomes a more utilized technology. So you'll find next year, I would forecast that it's gonna at least double next year. We have locations in Wrightsville, for example, just up the street, that we've gone to some streets where we have pay by mobile only. And it's areas where we know the demographic or who's actually using those spaces. For example, we've got some streets that are on the west side streets that we know that are occupied either by the resident or by surfers or fishermen, people who go there all the time. And so we've taken all the technology off of that street and it's straight Park Mobile. And it works extremely well. So it will mature and it will continue to evolve.
Where are we at on our hourly rate compared to the region or other like municipalities?
Right?
Right there at it, $2.50 an hour, I think is
Same as
fair. You've got $3 an hour at Wrightsville Beach. And Myrtle Beach has a tiered rate structure depending on how close you are to the beach.
What's,
That was a
downtown Wilmington?
proposition.
I saw, what's downtown Wilmington? I think they're a little less.
Yeah, they're a lot less.
As we start to see more parking pressure on the island, one of the conversations we had this past year was doing some tiered parking rates where it's, and clearly the third-party lots that are out there that are charging a higher rate or closer. I mean, what can we do to designate some other parking options that would allow?
And what if we just did that Palms lot that generated the most revenue where our locals aren't parking and did that tiered for June and July?
Right. Yeah, generally speaking, I'm not gonna speak to the location specifics, but generally speaking, if you have a location that's close, the closest to the beach, closest to your destination, that has amenities, like if it has a bathhouse or places to hose off your stuff or hose off you and your kids, showering facilities, et cetera, they typically will demand a premium. So it's price point parking. So the closer you are, the more that people are willing to pay. The further you are away with the less amenities,
convenience factor.
the less.
How
people
much
are
is the
willing
day
to pay.
parking right now in that lot? How much?
Per day, 17.
17. And what is it in like Wrightsville Beach or,
17.
so it's the same?
Yeah, same.
Let's charge more than Wrightsville and maybe people will go there. We would like to encourage that.
They'll fight it out. Who can be the most expensive?
What were those lots charging? What were those private lots charging?
In Wrightsville.
20?
Yeah, okay.
20 a day or 25 a day.
Near the old Astor lot back there, it was $4 an hour.
Well, it was like 20 or 25
Yeah,
a day.
yeah.
Well, let's think about that. I mean, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I do think it's a premium location, and we know where we're making our funds are in that lot, and most of our locals have a parking pass that we pay. I think it's $20.
Right. And that's
You
usually
know.
the offset to a rate increase is the rates are being paid typically by your visitors and the people
Right.
that are residents have resident passes. It doesn't affect them.
Well, we know the lots, particularly the one that's behind Brett's Donuts, on the corner there, was full all the time. And they thought it was our lot. That's how we knew so much about it, but it wasn't. But, and I think they must have been charging the 25.
The only
So-
downside I see on the tiered parking is it would encourage and push parking back into the residential west of 421, which, you know, is always a caution. When people start parking along the streets.
Well, that's certainly something we could visit, you know.
So if no further questions, thanks so much. We've had a great year. It's been great working with your staff and your police department. I think we've worked really, really well together. It's been a super year. Thank you for the opportunity to serve your community and we look forward to many, many years.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Great work.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Scott.
Scott. And just as a reminder, Ed, the building at 1708 Canal will be ready on the 9th to begin issuance of early bird, where Lanier will be. One of the three places, Island Tackle here at town and obviously out at 1708.
Perfect.
Not to mention
sir.
online. I always have to give that plug. Okay. Anything else, council, for staff before we go to non-agenda? And then
Public
into
comment.
closed session?
Were you guys still do public comment?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm betting that a few people out there might like to comment on what they've seen. It's not on the agenda, but I'm going to throw an audible here and make a motion for a 15-minute period of public comment without objection. All right. Since it's public comment, I don't have to make a motion. Would anybody like to come up and speak? And when you come up, ma'am, please give your name and your address to Kim. She'll log it over there. And we'll go 3 minutes per, as we always do. So, please.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak what I think should happen or get a question answered. My name is Maggie Talon. I live at 511 Raleigh Avenue. I have a question for the parking people. This past year, I've only found 3 golf cart parking spots in the entire town. I also know that a lot of locals, as was mentioned prior, like to double up in parking spots at the different lots around town so that we might leave another parking spot for someone who's paying by the day, by the hour, whatever. But I have a question. Why, if a parking spot is marked subcompact car only, can Chevy Silverados with a double cab and a pickup bed in the back park there and nothing happens to those folks? Just a question.
Thank you. And
Thanks.
she's right, and that's something we probably need to talk about. We did talk about tandem parking for golf carts, and I don't think we touched on that just now. So we'll get you an answer here shortly.
Have you guys tagged any vehicles for parking in a designated, subcompact? You got a Humvee out there or something? Okay. And there's data to show that that's taking place, obviously. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, that's a
Come
good-
on, Amy.
Yeah.
We've been together like every night now.
I know, what are we doing tomorrow?
I'll know. I'll call you.
I hope it's more.
Not here.
It's a chamber ROT meeting
We were in
tomorrow.
Bike Ped last night.
Yes, we were. So, hey, I'm Amy Hooker Kidd, 618 Clarendon, and I know a lot less about this than I do about bike paths, much to your dismay, I'm sure. So I've got 2 questions and a statement. Does Lanier make revenue off of every pass that's sold, whether it's annual or daily?
I'm looking at Ed
Mean
Parvin.
No.
Almost a commission beyond what they get from us?
No.
No.
So there's no involvement there in the pass process?
You mean the Freeman Park Pass or
Yes,
the?
the
Okay.
Freeman Park Pass, that's what I mean. No? Basic, okay. Because I was just wondering if our great parking company would want to help us share the cost of the computers that we need?
I think the contract that we have with
Contract's
Lanier is a
paid for
cost
that.
plus,
Gotcha.
correct?
All right, and my second question is, have we, and this may have been in last week's meeting that I wasn't able to make, apologize, have we reprojected revenues for the first half of 2020 based on the changes that were voted on by you guys this evening to Freeman Park? And if so, is that something that we can do and share that number with the public?
Oh, it absolutely would be, but I don't know about projections
I
yet.
think our projections are going to be very foggy. I mean, we don't know what the projections are going to be. It's going to be, how it takes off in December.
So as you recall, we've had this conversation. We've talked now about a Freeman Park pass that's an annual pass based on a 12-month calendar, whereas the town's budget and the numbers everyone sees is based on a fiscal year. So that's why oftentimes you'll hear council ask for a month-to-month comparison over last year. So we looked at some quarters, which I think those numbers were available recently, on June, July, and August, June, July, August, September for 18, and June, July, August, September for 19, to see how those changes when we had to close part of the park were those revenues. And I think Debbie's working on what those changes would do, because the fiscal year covers half the calendar year. So to get those exact number, I mean, yes, they're working through it. Yes, council wants to see those as much as you do.
Okay.
We'd like to see how that, what is gonna be the changes in revenue. We've also asked staff to look at what the potential savings in expenses would be.
Yeah, I know we don't have a crystal ball, but it'd be nice
Right.
to
Right.
use the data that
Right.
is available to try and figure out what might occur.
Right, so the revenue, so when we talked about annual passes earlier, and there was 5,000 some odd sold, those were in the calendar year.
Right.
But they were in last fiscal year. So we won't have our fiscal year, which is what the budget projected, X number of dollars coming in from Freeman Park. We won't have those revenues until the mid-January, when Debbie says we quit selling, or into January, whatever we said on Freeman Park passes. We don't know if we go from 5,700 to 5,200 or 1,200
Right.
or 8,000.
And that'll be, and I think the volume of those early bird sales will be a very good predictor of what will happen in the park
Definitely,
next year.
Definitely. Thanks for helping me understand better. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Amy. Come on up, sir.
First, I want to appreciate you guys looking over everything from last week and everything, and that some of the decisions y'all made were in good faith of everybody. I have a question about, are you going to extend the beachfront to the point, or are you going to leave it like it is?
You mean add sand?
No.
We're
Just
gonna leave it like it is.
open it.
What was voted on tonight was leave it like it was.
And what is the purpose of that?
I believe what our staff told us is they have some safety concerns about vehicles and monitoring and getting people past that pinch point in vehicles.
Okay.
That's what, I mean, that was the recommendation.
All right, what happens to the people that walk out there?
You can walk.
That's different.
No, that's not really different. You still got a safety feature there.
Last week, our police chief said no matter what, they'd still find a way to get out there. They have a way of getting their trucks out there if they need to for public safety.
Yeah.
So if somebody is walking out there, we'll still take care of them.
Substantially
Okay, well,
less.
what would be the difference?
The sheer number of people is substantially less of those that are walking out there versus if we opened it to vehicular travel. So I believe the action that was taken earlier and the changes made this year said we're not going to reopen to vehicular past that pinch point.
Okay,
If Mother
well-
Nature pushes a bunch of sand up there, I think that can be
Revisit
revisited,
that.
but at this point, it's not.
All right. A year before last, y'all had a sign saying, basically enter at your own risk, but you couldn't stop or park in that area between the two signs.
It got worse.
Well, I know the area got worse. Right now, you can't even get to, D. I was out there this afternoon. Appreciate y'all removing those barrels. Made it a lot easier for, going back and forth. But, that's where I was getting on the issue about educating the drivers. If they see that it's high tide, you can't go out there, period. But once that tide goes out, you're talking almost, I'd say 10 good hours of drivable land that you can get out there and go to the point and come back. I don't know of too many people besides some hardcore fishermen or surfers maybe that will stay out there, past 12, 15 hours. Most of the beach goers, they go out there for just a few hours and then they go home. But they like to enjoy the whole beach. Well, anyhow, another thing, y'all mentioned something about taking some of the campsites down. Are y'all gonna remove any of those campsites between A and I?
I'd have to look at a map
Yeah.
to tell you. They renumbered them between,
That's the first portion of
yeah.
the beach.
I believe what the recommendation has come back is the campsites have to be 10 feet off the toe of the dune, and they have to have at least 15 feet of dry sand between the
Well, I
high
mean,
water mark.
that's-
So I couldn't tell you how many of those from A to I will come out, but I'm sure we're gonna see a flux all summer long, depending on where the tides
Well,
are.
I think a
just
lot of
are.
people were hoping you'd take them out completely. all
We
of
did
them.
over the summer.
We did over the summer.
Right.
But you left everything there, all the poles, all the ropes, and it
That's a
really,
CAMA issue.
If we remove them, we can't put them back.
Put 'em back.
that'd be fine with me,
And some of us wouldn't object
Is this
either, but
eyesore?
unfortunately, that's not where we
you
are.
know? And
get it.
the beach could look a lot better without the dumpsters and other stuff that's out there. And I think that y'all, you take it, you bring it on, you take it off.
I'm pretty sure everything past the pinch point was removed or was scheduled to be removed. If it hasn't, I don't know why, because we said last summer, get everything past the pinch point back in. No porta-johns, no trash cans, no dumpsters.
Yeah, better go rescue your porta-john. Those doors are busted open.
Did we not get those pulled off?
We We have started moving, but I told everybody to put everything on hold until after this meeting, just in case you changed something.
And Ed, regarding what the gentleman was referring to, 10 feet off the toe of the frontal dune, those specifications on where a campsite can be have been adopted, correct?
Say that one more time.
The distance from the toe of the dune where a campsite can be established has now been adopted, a certain
10
minimum distance.
10
The answer
feet.
is yes.
Right, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That's 3.5 minutes.
So
All right,
let's
we can do one more.
So let's get that stuff out of there.
Yeah, I thought we said last July when we closed the park past that pinch point, that everything past the pinch point was coming out, period. Ash cans, trash cans, dumpsters, and certainly the porta johns. I guess we didn't.
Let's just get it
Take
out.
it out. Yes, sir. Got it.
Like a laser beam, are we
Howdy,
focused?
folks. Fred Grady, 608 Capefield Boulevard. I was listening to Leanne a few minutes ago
Oh, God.
on the parking rates. Is that rate the same as Riceville Beach right now, or is it lower?
It's 50 cents
Per hour.
cheaper.
We're lower by 50
I'm
cents.
thinking this, like Leanne said, it wouldn't affect us if we keep our rates, the people that live on the island, was $20. But if we went up, why don't we go up to what Riceville Beach charges? And that might help us with the, maybe the short revenue from Freeman Park or something else. I'm just saying that's something that you put in the back of your mind, the new council, because it's not gonna affect us. I mean, you know what? The visitors don't mind paying parking. Everywhere that we go, anywhere y'all go on the beach, somewhere up and down the East Coast, you can pay for parking. No big deal. So that's about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. And I'm going to wrap up public comment now. Move on to non-agenda.
Got one in the
One
back.
Count.
more.
You got
Wait,
one in the back that wants to speak.
holdout.
All right, come on up.
And Wes, are you gonna get with Ed? Okay, great.
You get to be
Can
the
we get a thumbs
you
up
get to
or
be the
thumbs
last
down,
guy,
or-
so fire away.
Hi, Mark Lamar, 1202 Canal Drive. Been a resident for over 20 years on Canal. The only thing I'd like to ask is if there, I can make a recommendation for the Jeep topless, the Go Topless thing. I love it as much as anybody else. I've got my Freeman Pass. I've had it every year as long as I was there when Wes's dad cut the ribbon, to let Freeman Park happen. Is there any way possible that we could think about maybe lessening the impact out there, which I believe strongly created the pinch point when we let 1,000 Jeeps out there? If we could just do that more times a year instead of one day, because it really creates an issue for people to be able to get in and out of Canal Drive. And I just think that the damage factor, and we could do it in the off season and just have it 4 times, 400 Jeeps at a time instead of massive.
That's not a-
So-
only my recommendation.
Just so you clarify, the town doesn't sanction any particular coordinated activities out there. We don't disallow, but we don't sanction it, but I do think they've told us they're not coming back this year just because of the size of it. We'll wait to see what happens, but I believe they've informed
I'm
us.
the co-chair for the Cape Ridge Disabled Tournament.
Right.
We built this thing up over at Curry Beach Pier, built it up, and all of a sudden it got too much.
Too much, right.
So, there was
I
EMS
think
problems, it could have been.
That would be a
major.
discussion to have
So
with
we
the
had to
Jeep
limit
folks.
it to a certain amount, and now
That
everybody-
might be a discussion with the Jeep
Everybody
folks.
has a good time every year. So as that come last year, they get to come next year, so it's, just a recommendation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna answer your question. The Carolina Beach Jeep Go Topless Day event has always been an annual event, and this year we have canceled it because of the condition of Freeman Park. However, we have reached out to Fort Fisher State Recreation Area, and we'll be having Pleasure Island Jeep Jam in May. But that will happen all over the whole island, which is gonna spread out the influx of Jeeps.
That many Jeeps are
Exactly.
being part of this beach area that we're allowed to drive.
Hey, Mark, take this offline with her, okay?
Have this conversation.
All right.
Thanks, George.
All right. Hey, non-agenda items, council? So, Dan, I know you got a
At this moment, I don't.
What do you think, Aaron?
No? Steve?
So, I want to ask Ed to revisit the plans for
Bath.
the ocean rescue. I looked at that. I still not sure that that's the best plan. I'm
So we-
sure that's going to make a lot of people unhappy, but I don't see an increase in the restrooms for the public.
I've asked our public utilities folks to put that on our agenda for, we have a November 26th workshop. So we'll bring back, they've already made some tweaks based on your comments and looked at increasing those bathrooms.
So just, I don't know if the other council members feel the same, but that's a huge project that we're redoing for, and I thought it was for the public, but also for ocean rescue, but I really feel like there should be some more facilities for the public restrooms in that plan.
Okay, and you'll see
For
some
that cost
options on the 26th for that.
What's that?
That cost point's 1.2 million.
Right, I mean, that's a
Our
lot of
original
money.
thought process was for our visitors with the backside of helping ocean rescue. And it looks like we've.
Right, the
solved
first
those
priority
needs
is the
are-
public.
Yeah.
That's right.
I agree. I mean, that was, the primary goal was to redo the bathhouse down there and provide more public showers and baths, and those were getting old and rather run down. And somehow it's morphed, and I think the world of the fire department, but at some point it's morphed into an ocean rescue with, it needs to be, in my opinion, the focus should be on the public bath and, shower and bathroom facilities. And let's figure out how to facilitate what we can in that space at a reasonable price. I'm still concerned that number is, it's a lot.
It is.
It's a lot.
And we're looking at possible reimbursement from room occupancy tax funds, and I know lifeguards qualify for that, but it also is servicing that public. And I can tell you there are a lot of people who do walk from the boardwalk to those Hamlet bathrooms because they know that they're there, and they won't go in the ones on the boardwalk that are currently on the boardwalk. I do know a lot of people do that. And I was hoping in the future that we could maybe work with the property owners that are going to build there and maybe have some connectivity or even a sidewalk or something. I don't know. I mean, I talked to you about that in the past, that maybe we could have some connectivity through there, not owned by the town, but maybe with the property owners.
Okay,
When they get to TRC with whatever they're going to propose.
right.
Is that, you mean TRC as far as on the corner lot, or are you talking about is something going on with the spare lot next to the Marriott on the ocean front? The one that Brett Keeler came to us before 10 years ago, looking at doing an outdoor venue on?
I have not heard anything on that in years.
I just don't want it to get to staff and us not know about it and we don't ask for some connectivity.
The connectivity is something I constantly hear about, an access between the backside of the Marriott to get to our boardwalk.
Right.
From Hamlet to the boardwalk, you can't get there in an
That's right.
easy fashion. And from the Marriott parking lot or the Michelangelo's parking lot to our Hamlet lot, it just seems like we don't have, we tout connectivity and we've looked at stuff all over town, but the one that gets an awful lot of foot traffic is between Hamlet and the boardwalk, and there's no easy way to do that unless you
Right.
walk through some bushes in a parking lot. It's just
Right.
not family friendly.
That's right. Agreed.
Sandspurs.
So I just want you to have that in your mind for when
Okay.
you get some, I know there's something that's going to be coming to staff eventually for those properties.
Right.
That's all I got.
And just one from me. When you're meeting with Malcolm, I think it's next week, let me know when we're meeting with him from our Sunny Point team. I spoke
Okay.
to Colonel Carlisle. She'd like to be there as well.
Do we have an action on that final joint land use study? Have they taken final action, or have they pulled that off the table?
It's adopted and we have copies of it. What do you mean it's final action? They haven't taken,
Leland was informed that they're not doing anything. They pulled it off the table. Brunswick County's told me they pulled it off the table.
oh, I haven't heard that. Okay, I'll ask.
All right. Yeah. With that, I make a motion to go into closed session to discuss an attorney-client matter.
Can we have a 5-minute break? 3?
No.
Okay.
Tell you what, before we go in, we will. Let me just go through the motion, Steve, because I can almost do this in my sleep now. Motion to go into closed session to discuss an attorney-client matter in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3. The matters being discussed include Town of Carolina Beach versus Carolina Freeman LLC, New Hanover County 18 CVS 3151. Town of Carolina Beach versus B&F Enterprises LLC, New Hanover County 18 CVS 3152. Town of Carolina Beach versus DRDK LLC, New Hanover County 18 CVS 3153. And Town of Carolina Beach versus Freeman Beach LLC, 18 CVS 3154. All those in favor? Aye. Aye, motion passes.